If a train in Japan runs more than about 5 minutes late, the railway hands out a piece of paper. It is a small printed slip, or these days a page you can pull up on a phone, and it says that this line was delayed by this much this morning. You take it to work and hand it over, and that is the end of the conversation. That fact does the rounds on the internet as a curiosity. Look at this strange country where the trains apologize, and it is not a curiosity. It is the visible tip of something much more interesting, which is a whole arrangement in which being on time is not a personal virtue at all. I spent 4 years in Japan learning a trade, and the thing I got wrong for the first 6 months was assuming that punctuality there was a character trait, that people were disciplined, and I was not, and that the fix was to try harder. It is not a character trait. It is closer to plumbing. It is a set of ordinary, boring habits that make lateness structurally difficult, so that the people who are on time are not being impressive. They are standing inside a system that carries them there. That distinction matters enormously, because if punctuality is a virtue, then the only available fix is willpower, and willpower is the least reliable substance any of us owns. If it is a system, you can change the system. Today, I am going to walk you through the 12 things that make it work. Most of them cost nothing. Several of them you can start tomorrow morning without telling anybody. And at the end, I am going to be honest about what this costs, because the same rigidity that makes the trains run also lands very hard on people whose lives are chaotic for reasons outside their control, and I am not going to pretend otherwise. Stay to number 12. It is the one that reframes lateness entirely, and it is the reason the other 11 are worth doing rather than just being a set of tips about clocks. Number 1. 10 minutes early is on time. Arriving at the stated time is late. This is the foundation, and everything else sits on it. If a thing starts at 9, people arrive at 10 to 9, not out of anxiety. That is simply when you arrive at a 9 o'clock thing. Turning up at 8:59 is not cutting it fine. It is a small failure, because at 9 o'clock the thing is supposed to already be underway, and you are supposed to already be in it. An American 9 o'clock means arrival begins around 9. There is a socially accepted drift of 5 or 10 minutes at the front of almost everything, and everybody plans around the drift, which means the drift is now the real start time, and the stated one is fiction. Here is why the 10 minutes matters practically rather than morally. It absorbs variance, traffic, a slow lift, a phone call as you leave. Every one of those is a few minutes, and a plan with no slack in it converts every one of them directly into lateness. A plan with 10 minutes of slack absorbs almost all of them, invisibly, for free. There is a second effect of the 10 minutes that has nothing to do with slack, and it is the one that changed my working life more than the punctuality did. Arriving with time means arriving as a person who has already stopped traveling. Your breathing has settled. You have taken your coat off. You have looked at what you are about to do. Arriving on the minute means walking in, still carrying the journey, still slightly rushed, still holding whatever happened on the way. Everybody has sat in a meeting where the first 10 minutes were spent listening to somebody decompress out loud. That is not rudeness. That is a person who has not yet arrived. Arriving in public. The 10 minutes is where that happens instead, quietly, before anybody else has to absorb it. Do this. Move your personal definition of on time back by 10 minutes for everything for 1 week. Not your alarm, your definition. Number 2, the buffer is in the plan, not in your hopes. The 10 minutes is not an aspiration people have and then miss. It is written into how the journey is worked out. If the meeting is at 2 and the train takes 40 minutes, nobody plans to leave at 1:20. They identify the train that arrives at 1:45, and then they identify the one before it, and they take the one before it. The difference is that the buffer is attached to a specific decision, this train, not that train, rather than to a general intention to leave in good time. Intentions get eroded by whatever is happening at 1:15. A decision made yesterday about which train to catch does not. That is the whole mechanism, and it generalizes to everything. A buffer you plan to have is not a buffer. A buffer that is baked into a choice you have already made is, do this. For your next appointment, pick the departure that gets you there 15 minutes early and treat that as the only option. Do not leave the choice open until the morning. Number 3, it is confirmed the day before. Short message day before, confirming tomorrow at 2 at the usual place. This looks like fussiness, and it kills a specific and very common failure mode, which is that one of the two people has the wrong time, the wrong day, or the wrong place, and neither finds out until somebody is standing somewhere alone. That failure has nothing to do with punctuality in the sense of leaving on time. It is an information failure, and it accounts for a substantial share of what gets recorded as somebody being late or not turning up. The confirmation costs 15 seconds and catches it while there is still a whole day to fix it. There is a reason the place is the part that goes wrong most, and it is not carelessness. Times get written down. Everybody records a time because the time is the thing that feels like the appointment. The location is frequently agreed in passing in a sentence 3 weeks earlier and then never written anywhere. It survives only in two people's memories of a conversation, and memories of conversations drift. So, the classic failure is not two people with different times. It is two people with the same time, both punctual, in different buildings. The confirmation catches it because writing the place down forces both parties to look at it once in text, while there is still a day to sort it out. Do this. Confirm everything the day before in one line, including the place, especially the place. Number 4, the 10 minutes is used, not waited through. Here is where it stops being about arrival and starts being about the actual work. People arriving 10 minutes early are not sitting in a corridor. They are setting up, getting the room ready, laying out what is needed, reading the one page they meant to read, having the 30-second conversation with a colleague that would otherwise have interrupted the meeting. Which means that at 9 o'clock the thing genuinely starts, rather than starting with 8 minutes of settling, plugging things in, and finding out that the display cable is missing. Almost every Western meeting has that 8 minutes in it. It is not counted as lateness by anybody, and across a year in an organization of any size, it is an enormous amount of time. Do this. Arrive early and set up. If you are the one running it, be in the room before everybody, with everything working. Number 5. The schedule is public. The plan for the day is visible to everyone. a board, a printed sheet, something on a wall. This does a thing that private calendars cannot. When the schedule is shared, being late is not a private matter between you and one other person. It is visible to a group, not as a punishment, but simply as a fact, and that visibility does more to hold a timetable together than any amount of individual conscientiousness. There is also a coordination benefit that matters more than the social pressure. When everybody can see the whole day, people can see how their piece connects to somebody else's, which means they understand what their own lateness would actually cost. A person who knows that 3 people are waiting downstream behaves differently from a person who thinks they are only inconveniencing themselves. Do this. Put the day's plan where people can see it, including who is doing what and when, not in an app. Number 6. Lateness is understood as taking something from other people. This is the most important reframe on the list. In America, being late is treated as a small personal failing. It is about you, your organization, your respect for others in an abstract sense, your character. The apology reflects that. Sorry, I am so bad at this. There. The framing is arithmetic. If you are 10 minutes late to a meeting with 5 people, you have not lost 10 minutes. You have consumed 50 minutes of other people's lives, and those minutes belong to them, and you spent them. Once you see it that way, being late is not a character flaw. It is a transfer, and one where the person doing the transferring never has to feel the cost because it lands on everybody else. That is why the response to it is not shame. It is simply that people arrange their lives so that it does not happen. In the same way, you would not casually take $50 off 5 colleagues. There is a reason the arithmetic framing works better than the moral one, and it is worth understanding rather than just accepting. Guilt is a feeling about yourself, and feelings about yourself are unstable and get tiring. A person who feels bad about being late will feel bad about it for a few weeks and then adapt, because human beings adapt to almost any recurring discomfort, and after the adaptation, nothing is left except a habit of apologizing. A number does not adapt. 50 minutes is 50 minutes whether or not you have got used to being late, and it stays 50 minutes on the 100th occasion. There is also a fairness point buried in it. The moral framing makes lateness about the latecomer, which means the conversation ends up being about their feelings and how much they should be forgiven. The arithmetic framing keeps the attention on the people who actually paid, who, in the moral version, are quietly asked to do the forgiving as well as the waiting. Do this. Next time you are running late, calculate the number. Minutes times people. Say that number out loud to yourself. It is a much more effective correction than feeling bad. Number 7. The transport is reliable enough to plan against. I have to be honest here, because this is where a lot of the difference lives, and it is not a habit anybody can adopt. Japanese urban rail is extremely reliable. The often quoted figure for average delay on the high-speed lines is measured in seconds rather than minutes across a year, including weather. And while the commuter lines are less immaculate than the tourist stories suggest, they are still accurate enough that people plan to the minute and are right almost always. That is infrastructure built over decades with enormous investment. It is not a mindset, and it produces a virtuous loop that is hard to start anywhere else. Because the trains are reliable, people can plan tightly. Because they plan tightly, they arrive on time. Because everybody arrives on time, things start on time, which makes the schedule reliable, which makes it worth planning against. If you live somewhere the transport is unpredictable, you cannot buy into that loop, and the correct response is a bigger buffer rather than feeling personally deficient. There is a mistake people make with journey estimates that is worth naming because it is mathematical rather than personal. Your memory of how long something takes is built from the good runs. The morning everything connected, nothing was closed, and you walked in at exactly the right moment. That is the one that becomes the number in your head because it is the one that felt like the journey working properly. But journeys are not symmetrical. They can go badly wrong by 20 minutes, and they cannot go well by 20 minutes, because there is a floor and no ceiling. So the average is always worse than the best case, and the number you are planning against is the best case, which is why measuring 3 times matters more than thinking harder about it. You are not trying to be more realistic as a personality. You are trying to replace a remembered number with a recorded one. Do this. Measure your actual journey 3 times before trusting any estimate of it. Then plan against the worst of the 3, not the average. Number 8. When the system fails, the system says so. Back to the delay certificate. What that slip actually does is move responsibility to where it belongs. If the train was late, that is the railway's failure, and the railway documents it, and the passenger does not have to argue about whether they are the kind of person who is late. Compare the standard Western situation, where a delay caused entirely by infrastructure arrives at work as a personal excuse. Sorry, traffic was terrible, and everybody in the room knows that some people say that when it is true, and some say it when they left late, and there is no way to tell, so the honest person carries a small suspicion that belongs to somebody else. A system that certifies its own failures protects the people inside it. That is worth more than it sounds. Do this. If you run something, distinguish clearly between causes people control and causes they do not, and say out loud which one you think happened. People will be far more honest with you about the first kind. Number 9. The plan is built backwards from the arrival. People work out what time they need to be somewhere, then subtract journey, walk from the station, contingency, getting ready, and arrive at a leaving time, which is then treated as fixed. The Western default is forwards. I will leave after this, and then it takes about half an hour, so I should get there around 2-ish. Forwards planning has no defined endpoint, so anything that runs long simply pushes the arrival later. Backwards planning has a fixed endpoint, and everything else compresses to fit it. Which means when something runs long, you notice at the moment it happens, rather than at the moment you arrive. There is a step in the backwards calculation that almost everybody omits, and it is the one that causes most of the failures. People subtract the journey and stop. They do not subtract getting ready, finding the thing they need to bring, the walk from where they park, the 4 minutes of being unable to locate keys, or the conversation that happens on the way out of a building. That gap between leaving your desk and actually being in motion is real. It is usually somewhere between 5 and 15 minutes, and it is invisible because nobody has ever timed it. The other omission is at the far end. People calculate arrival at the building rather than arrival in the room, and in any large office, hospital, or campus, those are genuinely different times. Do this. For anything that matters this week, write down the departure time first, calculated backwards before you plan anything else in that day, and subtract the getting out and the last 100 meters, not just the journey. Number 10. If you will be late, you say so immediately, with a number, the moment somebody knows they will be late, not when they arrive, not when they are already late. The moment they know, they say so, and they give a specific figure. I will be 12 minutes late. Not, I am running a bit behind. Two things make this work. The immediacy means the people waiting can use the information, start without you, reorder the agenda, go and do something else. The specificity means they can actually plan, because a bit behind is not a number and cannot be planned against. And crucially, the person delivering it is not apologizing extensively. The message is information, delivered fast, and the apology comes later and briefly. A long apology sent at the moment of the problem is prioritizing the sender's discomfort over the recipient's ability to act. There is a second rule about the number that people break constantly, and it undoes the whole thing. The number has to be true, including the possibility that it is bad. If you are going to be 25 minutes late, the message says 25. The temptation is enormous to say 10 because 10 sounds recoverable and 25 sounds like a disaster, and because you half believe you can make up the difference. But an optimistic number is worse than no number at all. The people waiting make a decision based on 10. They stay, they hold the room, they do not start. And then, at minute 11, they have to make the decision again with no better information. And again at 15. You have not softened the news. You have delivered it 4 times. The honest 25 lets them do something useful with the whole 25. Do this. Send the number the second you know it. 12 minutes. Make it the real one, even when it is embarrassing. Then apologize when you get there, in one sentence. Number 11. Things start on time, even when somebody is missing. The meeting begins at the stated minute, whether or not everybody is there. This is the enforcement mechanism, and without it, every other item on this list quietly decays. If a meeting waits for the last person, then the effective start time is set by whoever is latest, and everybody works that out within about 3 sessions and adjusts their own arrival accordingly. The punctual are punished with waiting, and the whole schedule drifts to accommodate the least reliable person in the room. Starting on time is slightly uncomfortable the first 2 times, and then it is simply how it works. There is a fairness argument underneath this that is worth making explicitly, because starting without people sounds harsh, and it is the opposite. Waiting is not neutral. Every minute a meeting waits is a minute taken from the people who did arrive, the ones who reorganized their morning, cut a conversation short, or ran for a train. Waiting takes that effort and throws it away in front of them. So the choice is not between being kind and being strict. It is between which group you are being kind to. And the default in most workplaces is to be kind to the person who is not there at the expense of the 4 who are. The recap is where this does the most damage. Repeating the first 10 minutes for somebody who arrives late charges everybody else twice for the same content, and it teaches the room that arriving late costs nothing because the meeting will come back for you. Do this. Start on the minute. Do not recap for latecomers. That converts your punctuality into their convenience. Number 12. The honest cost. Here is the part I promised, and it is not a footnote. This system is rigid, and rigid systems are hardest on people whose lives are least predictable. A parent whose child is ill. A person on shift work with no control over when they finish. Somebody with a chronic condition that does not consult the timetable. A person with a disability for whom transport is unreliable in ways nobody else experiences. Somebody without a car in a place built for cars. In a culture where lateness is a small logistical matter, those people are fine. In a culture where lateness is a serious social failure, they are quietly and permanently judged for something that is largely not about them. And I saw that happen, and it was ugly, and the people it happened to had no way to explain themselves that did not sound like excuses. There is also a version of this that tips into something worse, arriving early, not because it is useful, but because leaving on time looks bad, which is one of the roots of the working hours problem that Japan has been arguing with itself about for decades. So, take the mechanisms and leave the moralizing, the buffer, the backwards planning, the specific number when you are late, the meeting that starts on time. Those are all pure gain. The part where a late person is treated as having revealed something about their character is the part I would leave behind, because most of the time what it has revealed is that their morning was harder than yours. So, 12 things. 10 minutes early is on time. The buffer is a decision, not a hope. Confirm the day before. Use the 10 minutes. Make the schedule visible. Count the minutes you take from others. Measure your journey honestly. Let the system own its own failures. Plan backwards. Send a number immediately. Start without the missing person. And do not confuse a hard morning with a bad character. Now tell me the number. Out of those 12, which one would fix the most for you? Just the number in the comments. I would guess 9, because almost everybody plans forwards from when they finish the previous thing, and it is the single largest source of being 15 minutes late to everything. And if this landed, send it to whoever in your life you have quietly stopped expecting on time. Some of them are number 12, and it is worth knowing which. Next time, I am going to show you the 9 things that happen in the last 10 minutes of a Japanese working day. The closing routine that decides what tomorrow morning feels like. It is as structured as the opening. Almost none of it is work, and 7 of the 9 apply exactly the same, whether you are in a workshop, an office, or at a desk in your bedroom. Until then, plan backwards and send the number.